Which late-round starting pitcher are we targeting most in 2021? Find out right now on Fantasy Baseball Today in 5. Welcome, everybody, to the debut of Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, a podcast that gets you caught up fast on the fantasy news and advice that you need to know. Follow and stream us on Spotify and anywhere else podcasts are found. Happy Monday, March 1st. I am Frank Stanfield, joined today by Scott White. And we talked about late-round starting pitchers on Fantasy Baseball Today, the full-length podcast. So I figured, Scott, you can give us your favorite starting pitcher going outside the top 200 picks in ADP. Who do you got?
My favorite outside the top 200 is John Means of the Baltimore Orioles. He's the 234th player drafted on average, according to Fantasy Pros. And the reason I like him so much is because he became a different pitcher last year. Really from the beginning, his velocity was way up, like 2 miles per hour higher on the fastball. But first 6 starts were still pretty rough. The last 4, after a lot of people had tuned out, the numbers were already skewed for John Means. The last 4, we really saw the velocity spike begin to take effect. The whiff rate went from one end of the spectrum to the other. He was getting swings and misses like Garrett Cole. He had a 1.52 ERA in those final 4 starts, 30 strikeouts and 23 2/3 innings. And this from a guy who didn't walk more than one batter in any of his starts all year, any of the 10 starts, the good or the bad. Great control. We knew that about John Means. But if he can replicate that strikeout rate over a full season, if he figured out how to make that velocity work for him, we're talking big breakout potential for a guy who's essentially free. I don't see much downside to taking him at the place where he's going.
And the place where he is going is pick 252, according to Fantasy Pros ADP, as the 72nd starting pitcher off the board. Again, that is John Means business from the Baltimore Orioles. Scott, we also had a report over the weekend regarding Shohei Ohtani, who, of course, is a spectacle for baseball purposes. Of course, he's an awesome hitter, but he is also a two-way player, which means that he's a starting pitcher. Apparently, he hit 100 miles per hour in a 35-pitch batting practice session over the weekend. The current ADP for Ohtani is 184. Do we need to start thinking about moving Ohtani up the board now?
I think so. Obviously, he came back from Tommy John surgery last year as a pitcher, and it was just a disaster, especially in terms of throwing strikes. He could not find the strike zone and just became unusable in that role for the Angels. But before Tommy John surgery, when he first reached the majors and he was first in the majors in 2018, 3.31 ERA and 10 starts, 1.16 whip, 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. It showed ace potential, and that's who he was built to be coming over from Japan. The reports have been positive. Every outing it seems like he's throwing harder. I don't know that it's going to get any harder than 100, reaching 100. But it's clear the stuff seems to be intact for Ohtani. So obviously somebody to keep an eye on during the exhibition season. If he's having as much trouble finding the strike zone as he was in the build-up to last season, then, maybe use some caution. But a lot of upside there, and the cost has never been lower.
Scott, let's quickly talk about Chris Sale, Noah Syndergaard, and Luis Severino, 3 pitchers who are coming back from Tommy John surgery. Each of them had it between February and March of last year. How do you rank these starting pitchers, and which one do you expect back first of that group?
Well, Severino's had the most time to recover. There isn't a clear timetable for any of them. We've been hearing maybe the Mets are more optimistic about Syndergaard making it back sooner. And maybe that means Syndergaard deserves to go off the board first of them. I think I have less idea what Syndergaard's going to do when he comes back. His stuff was showing some signs of decline even before he got hurt. And, in the years leading up to it, I'm saying, so not something I'm attributing to the injury. When Severino and Sale, we were still regarding them as aces more or less. I'm kind of I don't know. They should all basically go in the same range. I kind of like Severino the most of the 3. He's probably the one I'd take first, but it's probably a situation where the league's deep enough for it to matter. I see one of them go off the board, and that's when I start thinking about taking one myself, because you're going to have to stash them for 2 to 3 months, probably.
Again, that is Chris Sale, Noah Syndergaard, and Luis Severino. All three are coming back from Tommy John surgery, and all three are going outside the top 220 picks, according to Fantasy Pros ADP. For more extensive fantasy baseball coverage, listen to the Fantasy Baseball Today podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, your smart speakers, or anywhere else podcasts are found. And thanks for listening to Fantasy Baseball Today in 5, our debut episode. This is your audio outlet for fantasy news and advice in 5 minutes or fewer. If you enjoyed the pod, please leave a 5-star review on Apple. We'll be back again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.